Watching James Parker die changed Maya forever. Seeing the man she loved eaten alive in a cannibal ritual transformed her into something else entirely. 6 weeks later, there was no one left in that tribe. Maya had vanished too. Her commander wasn't looking for her, because Maya was hunting him. Welcome to Storyline Universe. Before we dive into this intense story of love, loss, and the darkest kind of revenge, tell me in the comments which city you're watching from today. And if you believe stories about transformation through trauma deserve to be told, hit that subscribe button. These moments reveal who we become when everything we love is taken away. Amazon rainforest, Peru-Brazil border, March 15th, 2024. The insertion had gone perfectly. 6 Special Forces operators moving through the Amazon at night, invisible to satellites, undetectable to ground surveillance. Their target was a cocaine processing facility hidden deep in the rainforest. But this wasn't a standard drug interdiction mission. Sergeant Maya Santos checked her GPS coordinates one more time, then signaled to her team. They were 3 kilometers from the objective, moving through terrain so dense that daylight barely penetrated to the forest floor. Maya had been looking forward to this mission for weeks, not because of the tactical challenge, but because she'd be working alongside Staff Sergeant James Parker again. They'd served together for 2 years, through 4 deployments, and somewhere along the way, Maya had fallen completely in love with him. It wasn't regulation, and it wasn't professional, but in the dangerous world of special operations, Maya had learned that life was too short not to acknowledge what mattered. James mattered more than anything. Santos, Parker, take point. Colonel Richardson's voice crackled through their earpieces. Establish overwatch on the facility and report back. Maya moved through the jungle with James, their communication seamless after years of training together. They'd never spoken about their feelings directly, but there were moments, shared glances, protective instincts, the way he always positioned himself between her and danger, that told Maya her feelings might not be unrequited. The processing facility appeared exactly where intelligence had indicated, a cluster of metal buildings connected by elevated walkways, protected by armed guards, and hidden beneath the forest canopy. But as Maya studied the target through her scope, something felt wrong.
"James," she whispered, "look at the perimeter guards. Their positioning doesn't match a drug operation." James adjusted his binoculars. "You're right. This looks more like a research facility than a cocaine lab." They were photographing the target when Maya heard the first sounds of movement in the jungle behind them. Not animal sounds. Human voices speaking in an indigenous language he didn't recognize. "Contact," James whispered into his radio. "Indigenous personnel approaching from multiple directions." Colonel Richardson's response was immediate. "Maintain position. Do not engage unless fired upon." But Maya's instincts were screaming danger. The voices were getting closer, moving with tactical precision through terrain they knew intimately. This wasn't a chance encounter. "James, we need to move, now." Before he could respond, the jungle erupted around them. Arrows began falling from the canopy, followed by warriors painted with tribal markings and armed with both primitive weapons and modern rifles. Maya and James returned fire, but they were outnumbered and surrounded. The radio crackled with confused voices from their team, but no support was coming. "Santos, Parker, fall back to Extract Point Bravo," Richardson's voice ordered. But Extract Point Bravo was 15 kilometers through hostile territory, and the indigenous fighters were herding them in the opposite direction, deeper into the rainforest, away from any hope of rescue. Maya realized with sick certainty that they'd been betrayed. The truth became clear as Maya and James were driven deeper into the Amazon. This wasn't a random encounter with hostile tribes. The indigenous fighters knew exactly where the Special Forces team would be, when they would arrive, and how to cut off their escape routes. Someone had sold them out. Maya, James said as they took cover behind a massive cecropia tree. Richardson knew this would happen. The mission briefing, the target location, even our insertion coordinates, it was all designed to get us captured. Maya felt cold certainty settle in her stomach. Why? The facility we were observing isn't processing cocaine. It's a bioweapons research site. Richardson has been protecting it, and we stumbled too close to something we weren't supposed to see. They could hear their captors moving through the jungle, tightening the circle around them. Professional, methodical, patient. These weren't desperate tribespeople defending their territory. These were paid hunters eliminating witnesses. James, we can't let them take us alive, whatever they're planning. Maya. He turned to look at her, and for the first time, she saw something in his eyes she'd never seen before. Resignation. If we don't make it out of this, I need you to know something. Don't. Maya's voice was fierce. We're getting out of this, both of us.
I love you, James said quietly. I've loved you for 2 years, and I never said it because of regulations and protocol and all the reasons that don't matter now. Maya felt her heart break and mend simultaneously. James. The attack came from 3 directions at once. Tranquilizer darts, not bullets, designed to incapacitate rather than kill. Maya felt the dart hit her shoulder and fought against the spreading numbness. But within seconds, the jungle was spinning around her. The last thing she saw before losing consciousness was James reaching for her hand. Maya woke up in hell. She was tied to a wooden post in what appeared to be a village clearing, surrounded by indigenous huts and cooking fires. But this wasn't a normal village. The decorations told a different story. Human skulls arranged in ceremonial patterns, bones carved into ritual implements, and the unmistakable smell of cooked meat that made Maya's stomach turn. Cannibals. The bioweapons facility had been paying cannibal tribes to eliminate witnesses and dispose of evidence. James was tied to a post 20 feet away, still unconscious but alive. Around them, approximately 40 tribal members were preparing for what looked like a ceremony. Maya recognized some of the implements from anthropological studies she'd read. This was a ritual feast. They were going to be eaten alive. Maya tested her bonds methodically, looking for weaknesses, escape routes, weapons. The ropes were professionally tied, the posts were solid hardwood, and the guards were watching carefully. But Maya had been trained to escape from much more sophisticated restraints. The real problem was James. Even if she could free herself, she couldn't carry an unconscious man through hostile jungle while being pursued by people who knew the terrain intimately. James began to stir as the sun set and the ceremonial preparations intensified. When he saw their situation, his training took over. He immediately began assessing threats and looking for tactical advantages. Maya, he whispered, how many guards? 6 on perimeter, unknown number in the village. James, this is a ritual site. They're going to... I know. His voice was calm, professional. How's your rope? I can get free, but not fast enough to help you before they notice. James was quiet for a long moment, watching the tribal members arrange ceremonial items around a large fire pit. Maya, listen to me carefully. When they start the ceremony, they'll focus on one of us first. When that happens, you get free and run. I'm not leaving you. That's an order, Sergeant. Maya felt tears burning her eyes. James, don't do this. One of us needs to survive to report what really happened here. Richardson betrayed us, and he needs to be stopped. The ceremony began at sunset. Maya would carry the sounds of that night for the rest of her life. The tribal members chose James first, cutting him free from the post and dragging him to a stone altar near the fire. Maya watched in helpless horror as they began the ritual, chanting, dancing, preparing implements that she recognized from her worst nightmares. They kept him alive. That was the point of the ritual. The cannibals believed that consuming flesh while the victim was still living transferred the person's strength and courage to the tribe. Maya freed herself during the ritual, using techniques she'd learned in seer training, but she couldn't reach James without exposing herself to 40 armed cannibals. All she could do was watch and listen as the man she loved was systematically destroyed. James never screamed. Even as they cut into him, even as they began the feast, he maintained his dignity and courage. His eyes found Maya's through the firelight, and his expression was clear. Run. Survive. Get revenge. Maya ran. She disappeared into the Amazon rainforest at midnight, carrying nothing but her combat knife, and the sound of James's death burned into her memory. Behind her, the feast continued until dawn. But Maya wasn't running away from the cannibals. She was learning their territory, studying their patterns, preparing for war. 3 days later, Maya began hunting. She'd spent 72 hours moving through the jungle like a ghost, observing the cannibal village from a distance, learning their routines and identifying individuals. The tribe consisted of 47 people, men, women, and children who participated in ritual cannibalism as a way of life. Maya felt no pity for any of them. Her first target was a hunter who ventured out alone to check trap lines. Maya followed him for 6 hours, learning his route, his habits, his vulnerabilities. When he stopped to drink from a stream, she killed him from behind with her combat knife. Quick, silent, professional. But she didn't just kill him. She arranged his body in a way that would send a message to the rest of the tribe. Something was hunting them now. The second kill came 2 days later. A woman gathering medicinal plants near the river. Maya had watched her routine for days, noting that she always worked alone in the early morning hours. The kill was clean, but Maya left evidence of her presence. Military boot prints in the mud, a torn piece of camouflage fabric. She wanted the tribe to know they were being hunted by someone with military training. By the third kill, the tribe was starting to panic. They'd found the bodies, seen the signs, understood that they were being systematically hunted by someone who moved through their jungle like a predator. Maya felt nothing but cold satisfaction. James was dead because these people had sold their services to whoever paid them to eliminate witnesses. Now they would pay the price for that choice. One by one, Maya began reducing their numbers. 2 weeks into her campaign of revenge, Maya had killed 12 members of the cannibal tribe. Each death was carefully planned, professionally executed, and psychologically devastating to the survivors. She'd learned to move through the Amazon like the indigenous people themselves, silent, invisible, perfectly adapted to the environment. Her special forces training combined with desperate motivation had turned her into something the cannibals had never encountered. A predator more skilled than they were. Maya varied her methods to maintain psychological pressure. Sometimes she used her combat knife for close kills. Sometimes she constructed traps using jungle materials and military engineering principles. Sometimes she simply disappeared people, leaving no trace except empty hammocks and bloodstains. The tribe tried to fight back. They posted guards, moved in groups, even attempted to hunt Maya themselves, but they were dealing with someone who had years of advanced military training and nothing left to lose. More importantly, Maya had something they didn't. She knew their territory better than they did now. She'd been studying their movements for weeks, memorizing every trail, every water source, every hiding place. After 3 weeks, the tribal population had dropped from 47 to 31. The survivors were terrified, desperate, and beginning to fracture as a social unit. That's when Maya decided to escalate. Maya's tactics shifted from individual hunting to psychological warfare. She began leaving evidence of her presence in places the tribe considered safe, their ceremonial grounds, their food storage areas, even inside their huts while they slept. She wanted them to understand that nowhere was safe, that she could reach them anywhere, anytime. The tribe tried to flee their traditional territory, but Maya had anticipated this. She'd spent weeks learning the geography of the region, identifying choke points and escape routes. When the cannibals tried to relocate, they found their path blocked by fallen trees, destroyed bridges, and carefully placed obstacles. Maya was herding them, concentrating them in an area where she could eliminate them more efficiently. The psychological pressure was devastating. Tribal members began turning on each other, suspecting betrayal and collaboration. Their social structure, built around communal hunting and ritual feasting, collapsed under the constant threat of death. Maya took advantage of the chaos to accelerate her elimination campaign. In one night, she killed 6 people using a combination of traps, ambushes, and close-quarters combat. By the end of the 4th week, the tribal population had dropped to 18 survivors. But Maya wasn't satisfied yet. She wanted them all dead. Every person who had participated in James's murder, every person who had taken payment to eliminate witnesses, total extermination. The end came quickly once the tribe's population dropped below 20. Maya had learned that small groups were easier to track, harder to hide, and more susceptible to psychological manipulation. She began picking them off in pairs, in small groups, using tactics that ensured maximum terror for the survivors. Maya would kill most of a group, but leave one person alive to report back to the others, spreading fear and desperation. The psychological effect was exactly what she'd planned. The remaining tribal members became paralyzed by fear, unable to hunt, gather food, or perform basic survival tasks. They were so focused on the threat Maya represented that they forgot how to live in their own jungle. Maya's military training had taught her that destroying an enemy's will to fight was more effective than simply killing them. By the 6th week, the cannibals were no longer a functioning tribal unit. They were terrified refugees in their own territory. The final elimination took 3 days. Maya hunted down the last 18 members of the tribe, systematically, professionally, without mercy. She varied her methods to prevent the survivors from predicting her tactics, but the outcome was never in doubt. On the 42nd day after James's death, Maya killed the last member of the cannibal tribe, the chief who had presided over the ritual feast. She made his death slow and personal, ensuring he understood exactly why he was dying. 47 people had participated in murdering James Parker. 47 people were now dead. But Maya's mission wasn't complete yet. Maya emerged from the Amazon rainforest after 7 weeks, like a ghost returning from the dead. She'd lost 30 pounds, her skin was scarred from jungle combat, and her eyes held a coldness that hadn't been there before. But she was alive, and she had unfinished business. Colonel Richardson reported her as missing in action, presumed dead. The official record stated that Sergeant Maya Santos had been killed during a failed mission to interdict drug trafficking in the Amazon basin. Maya let him believe that. She spent 2 weeks gathering intelligence on Richardson's activities, using skills she'd learned in intelligence training to investigate his connections to the bioweapons facility. What she discovered confirmed her suspicions. Richardson had been paid to eliminate the Special Forces team that had gotten too close to classified research. James Parker had died because Colonel Richardson had sold out his own soldiers for money. Maya began planning Richardson's death with the same methodical precision she'd used to eliminate the cannibal tribe. But this time, she wouldn't use jungle tactics. This time, she would use Richardson's own environment against him. Urban warfare. Colonel Richardson lived in a suburban neighborhood outside Fort Bragg, a quiet community where military families felt safe and secure. He had a wife, 2 teenage children, and a reputation as a decorated officer who'd served his country with distinction. None of his neighbors knew he was a traitor who sold soldiers' lives for money. Maya spent a week learning Richardson's routine, just as she'd learned the cannibals' patterns in the Amazon. She identified his vulnerabilities, his schedule, his security arrangements. Richardson felt completely safe in his suburban fortress, protected by military police, alarm systems, and the assumption that his crimes would never be discovered. He was wrong. Maya entered his house at 0300 hours while his family slept, using techniques she'd learned in urban combat training. She disabled the alarm system, bypassed the security cameras, and reached Richardson's bedroom without making a sound. When Richardson woke up, Maya was sitting in the chair beside his bed, her combat knife resting across her knees. "Hello, Colonel," she said quietly. "We need to talk about James Parker." The conversation lasted exactly 47 minutes, 1 minute for each member of the cannibal tribe Maya had killed in revenge for James's death. Maya told Richardson everything: how his betrayal had led to James's death, how she'd survived and eliminated every person responsible, how she'd learned about his financial connections to the bioweapons facility. When the 47 minutes were over, Maya used her knife one final time. Then she disappeared into the night, leaving behind no evidence except Richardson's body and a combat knife with serial numbers that traced back to a soldier who was officially dead. The investigation into Colonel Richardson's death lasted 6 months and concluded that he'd been killed by unknown assailants, possibly connected to his classified work in South America. The case remained open but inactive. Sergeant Maya Santos remained listed as missing in action, presumed dead. But sometimes, people reported seeing a woman who matched her description in remote areas, helping with disaster relief, providing medical aid to indigenous communities, working as a wilderness guide in places where no one asked too many questions about the past. The woman never stayed long in one place, never used the same name twice, and never discussed her background. But people who worked with her noticed certain things: her tactical awareness, her medical training, her ability to move through dangerous territory like a ghost. And sometimes, when drug traffickers or human smugglers operated in areas where she was working, they would simply disappear. No bodies were ever found. No evidence was ever discovered. But the criminal operations would collapse, and the perpetrators would vanish without a trace. Maya Santos had learned something in the Amazon rainforest that would stay with her forever. Justice doesn't always come through official channels. Sometimes it comes through the jungle at night, carrying a combat knife and the memory of everything you've lost. James Parker was dead, but his killer had been avenged. The cannibal tribe was extinct, but their crimes had been answered. Colonel Richardson was gone, but his betrayal had been punished. And somewhere in the world, a woman who no longer existed was making sure that other people who sold lives for money learned the price of their choices. So now, I ask you, have you ever been betrayed by someone you trusted? Have you seen love destroyed by greed and corruption? How do you find justice when the system fails you? Share your thoughts in the comments, not about revenge, but about healing and moving forward. Because here at Storyline Universe, we believe that the darkest stories often reveal the most important truths about human nature, loyalty, and the price we pay for love. Thank you for watching. If this story of love, loss, and transformation moved you, subscribe to Storyline Universe. We're here to remind you that sometimes the people who vanish are the ones who matter most. And remember, the greatest love stories aren't always about happy endings. Sometimes they're about what you're willing to sacrifice when everything you love is taken away.